Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Also, hello to all the guests joining online from all over the world, including Hong Kong, Malaysia, Japan, Singapore, and mainland China. Welcome to the Global Forum of 2022 Hong Kong Young Leaders Program organized by Global Institute for Tomorrow, GIFT. I'm Joyce, the MC today. This year, thank you. This year, our topic is the Northern Metropolis, a vision for livable and resilient city. Today, we are happy and honored to have Professor KK Ling, the former strategic planner advisor of Hong Kong and Shenzhen cooperation, here with us today and to share his view and give feedbacks to our teams after the presentations. Thank you, Professor. So this is our today's agenda for the presentation. And after the presentations, we will have a Q&A sections. So all the guests join online. You're welcome to raise questions at any time by typing your question into the Q&A boxes. So we will answer in the Q&A sections after the presentation. Now, we are pleased to have Mr. Eric Streisand, the Managing Director, Global Services of GIFT, to give up a welcome and opening speech. Let's welcome Eric onto the stage.
Okay, thank you, Joyce. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our friends in real life, and welcome to our friends online. My name is Eric Streisand. We are managing a very unique hybrid event today. Hence all of the technology around us. We will do our best to navigate the technology seamlessly. But please forgive us if anyone online has any hiccups, but we are doing our best over here. We have a big tech team who's managing this. I suppose many aspects of our life have gone either virtual or hybrid in the last year, so we are keeping up with the times. So welcome and thank you, Professor KK Ling, for joining us. Thank you also, CY Lam, for joining us, and so many of our friends and stakeholders who have helped us on this journey. We are here at the culmination of what is a 3-week journey for the participants. This is GIFT's flagship leadership learning program, experiential leadership learning, which is anchored on the whole notion of purpose in leadership. And I think a big part of what the participants have learned in their own way, on both a personal and a professional level, is what that sense of purpose means to them. And the way that we facilitate this program, which is, we believe, a very unique offering, and we've done it in many different formats, is to then seek to enable the participants, and we have 25 individuals who've joined this program, to really reflect on what that purpose means for themselves, but also in the context of a changing world. And for the Hong Kong program, what the future of Hong Kong could look like and should look like. So the project work that we've engaged in over this past week in particular has been very much related to what the future of Hong Kong looks like vis-a-vis the Northern Metropolis region and the Northern Metropolis development strategy. I think for the individuals who've joined, it's been a great deal of hard work, but also an opportunity to develop great friendships. And I can tell you that over the last several days in particular, our teams, the 4 teams who you'll hear from today, have worked very late nights. We have started them off very early in the morning. Some of the days have been long. And upon reflection with the teams, we know that it's not always been easy sailing. But that is the essence of what we seek to do with the program. And the project work, although it's very much about leadership skills and developing skills in practice and bringing those back to their organizations, it is also about providing recommendations, analysis, recommendations, and proposals that can be of benefit for the future of Hong Kong. And that is what you will hear today. So it's very much about instilling a sense of ownership of the solutions to problems rather than just owning the problems. I think today, not just in Hong Kong, but in many parts of the world, certainly we see too much ownership of solutions, complaining, fighting. But what we want to do is shift that to actually inspire the individuals who come to take ownership of solutions. And I can tell you, they have done that tremendously in this last week. So what you will see today is actually the fruit of those of their hard work. And they will describe 4 specific areas of the development of the Northern Metropolis, which relate to quality of life and their own aspiration and how they understand creating the future through a quality of life. So it is an ownership of solutions. And, you know, we have 25 individuals in the group here. We have a pretty even mix amongst business friends, government representatives, and leaders of NGO groups and future leaders of civil society. So that mix also provides a rich learning environment that we don't often have a chance to engage in normal day-to-day life. We often spend time with our colleagues, with our families, and in our circles, but we rarely mix and have open and meaningful conversations across these sectors of society. So we've done our best to foster that. And I should mention that none of the group is experts in development strategy in a region like the Northern Metropolis. Of course, everyone lives in Hong Kong. I think almost everyone is from Hong Kong. There's a few in the group who, like myself, have come from other places but have kind of made our home here. But they are not experts in the particular areas that we will share with you today. We do, however, have industry practitioners, both from business, we have government representatives. So there's a great amount of resources and knowledge within the group, but we don't claim to be experts on the development topics that you will hear. That said, I can safely say that many within the group have become relative experts in the 4 areas that you will hear about. I think the group probably learned more about these 4 areas than they ever expected to. And if you want to ask about housing policy, the housing team can talk to you extremely detailed and intelligently about that. If you want to talk about developing the INT ecosystem for the future of Hong Kong, I can assure you the INT team knows a great deal about that. So what you will hear today, therefore, is a summary of some of the big, exciting ideas that the group have put together. But I should stress that it is just a summary. And behind the report, the presentation that you will see today, there is approximately more than 100-page PowerPoint report that has a great deal of analysis, recommendations, references, justification, etc. So we hope you enjoy the summary, the presentation today. We hope that it inspires you to really look at these issues in a new way. But in a few weeks, when the final report is finished, we will distribute that widely. And that is really where you can go into much greater detail about these recommendations. I think on that point, for all of you who are here in person and all of our friends joining online, we certainly hope that this will inspire you to also get involved in the discussion. So if you are inspired by some of the things that you hear, or you actually have questions, or you want to collaborate and work together, please contact us. Again, we will distribute the report widely and at no cost. That's kind of the public engagement and the public distribution of the report. But we would love to hear from you and seek to potentially collaborate with you on some of these in the future. So last but not least, the participation of the 25 individuals has been made possible by the great support that we've enjoyed from the corporate sector, who have nominated and sent your best and brightest, from the government and the departments who have nominated individuals to join. And very importantly, about 1/3 of the group also comes from the civil society sector, prominent NGOs who are doing the important work of keeping the fabric of society strong and serving many of those who have have unmet needs. So I'd like to just very quickly acknowledge and thank the sponsors who have made our NGO participant support possible, and that is Chow Tai Fook Enterprises, River Star Foundation, CLP, the Lanson Foundation, and the Better Hong Kong Foundation. So I'd like to really thank you for your support. So with that, I would like to also invite my colleague Chandran Nair, who is beaming in from Kuala Lumpur, to say just a few words of welcome. So Chandran, over to you.
Thank you, Eric. Can you all hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay. Thanks everyone for attending, and can I extend a warm welcome to all the distinguished guests who are there, and to everyone else who has turned up online to listen. I'd also like to say a warm welcome to all the cohort who I've missed for about a week. I'm in KL for the first time in 10 years that I've missed a final forum like this, but there comes a time where things aligned in a way that I could not be in Hong Kong today. I had to come from KL for personal reasons, and because of the current quarantine requirements, I couldn't be there today. But I am sure that what we're going to see will be an extremely accomplished presentation with some great ideas. Let me just start by saying too that it is very good that I feel very proud that together with our partners and sponsors, we managed to continue this Hong Kong program without interruption, despite all the massive interruptions that we've experienced in Hong Kong. Starting with the social unrest and then the pandemic, but we never skipped a beat. And that's thanks to all the people who supported us. So I remember in 2019, when the social unrest was just about to begin, we concluded our program in the GBA. And then in 2020 and 2021, we continued to do that. And in 2022, we are now running the 8th program. In all of this year is, of course, the 25th anniversary of the handover of Hong Kong to the sovereign. And it's, for me, a great pleasure that we are able to engage with a group of young professionals from across sectors in Hong Kong to look at the future of Hong Kong. The Northern Metropolis is going to reshape Hong Kong, and in a way also reshape the way Hong Kong and the Greater Bay Area transforms itself over the next 20 or 30 years. So for us, this is a great program to be involved in. I'm looking forward to listening to the ideas. The program was started, the Hong Kong program was started about eight years ago, and it was triggered by a request from the Jockey Club to start, for us to bring our methodology to Hong Kong to essentially provide a platform for young professionals from, as Eric pointed out, a diverse background from the civil society, business, and government to come together and share ideas, and perhaps very importantly, provide an insight into the way Hong Kong could operate, but also to essentially get people to believe in the future of Hong Kong. And in the last 3 years, of course, we've all become aware of the discussions about the future of Hong Kong, the idea that some of the best young talent are leaving, etc. So about 2 years ago, we started to sort of make the emphasis on the Young Leaders Program about staying and building. And this is very much about staying and building. I was with the cohort for the first week during the classroom sessions, and we had very good discussions about how committed people are to making Hong Kong a viable and resilient city moving forward. And the Northern Metropolis development provides a great platform to initiate that. So as Eric pointed out, there are kind of 4 areas that they would be looking at: housing issues, low carbon economy, the ecological considerations that needs to take place, and looking at the whole issue about technology. So let me just stop there because I can't wait to hear what people are going to say, but to just emphasize that we continue to do this because we're always inspired by how good, once we get people together, how good the ideas are. These ideas then are essentially there for the business community, government, and others to take forward. And over the last 8 years, we've seen several of these ideas take shape. The whole point is to create a sort of a virtual think tank every year of young Hong Kong professionals who come and essentially generate ideas. All we do is try and facilitate that. And our partners, our speakers, those who can contribute their time and encourage the cohort, I'd like to say thank you so much. And now I look forward to listening and wish you all the best to the cohort. And again, once to our partners, I can't thank you enough for supporting us. Thank you, Eric. Over to you.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you, Chandran. And I think without further ado, let me welcome our MC back to the stage to begin the show. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nair, for the speech. And before we starting our presentations, I would like to introduce our team for today, the present team for today. First is Ms. KYLP from Save the Children, and she will give us a brief introductions on the project and the background. Then is Mr. Andrew Nardi from DBS Bank, and he will present the quality of life guiding principle. Finally, we will have Ms. Bonnie Fong from the Buildings Department, Mr. Howard Pang from the CLP, Mr. Jason Yim from Hong Kong University, and Ms. Karen Mack from Invest Hong Kong. And they will share with us our idea and our policy proposal on the Northern Metropolis. Now, I will pass the time to to Kayla for presenting the introductions for you.
Joyce, and good afternoon, everyone. So first, I want to introduce who we are. So just now, Eric mentioned that we have 25 participants from different sectors, and these are the logos of the companies, the organization that we are in. So we're a very diverse group, and also once again want to thank our sponsor who supported some of us to participate in this program. And then next, I want to share with you the journey that 25 of us has been go through in the past 3 weeks. So before the program actually starts in person, so we actually had a chance to get into the context to understand a little bit more about the Northern Metropolis. And with that basic context, get to know more about the topic issue more. We come together in a classroom setting to have a lot of inspiring sessions from very great, fabulous speakers, which some of them are also here with us today. And in that learning sessions, we also had a chance to learn and exercise some of the presentation skills and also leadership skills. And here comes to a very exciting part that we enjoy a lot is the stakeholder engagement part. So in that part of the experience, actually we had so many chances to talk to different stakeholders from different backgrounds. So we learned from their insights, and also we had a chance to go to different places to learn about the issues in real life. So here is the picture that we went to the Northern Metropolis. So at that day, we had a lot of valuable learnings. So in there, we go to the HKYLP farm, and also we had a chance to go to Daguling village and also some Shenzhen areas. And then we also come together after learning so much stuff in the beginning of this journey. We come together to develop ideas for a policy proposal that we hope that this impactful and meaningful proposal will be shared and submitted to different stakeholders of society. And here I want to also thank all the stakeholders that we interviewed in this slide. So their voluntary support in contributing to help us to do this policy proposal has been so valuable. And I thank you again for their volunteer contributions. And then next, I want to give a little bit background of the Northern Metropolis. So this is a strategy announced by the Hong Kong government during the 2021 policy address with the aim to expand the Northern Economic Belt covering areas including like Yunlong, Tianshui, Sangshui, Fanlang, and also some new development areas and some rural areas surrounded by that. So to consolidate this area, this is actually an area with a total size of like 30,000 hectares, and with the primary goal to make this metropolis a high quality urban space for people to live, work, and also transport. So we expect that with this development plan, we are going to have a new high quality space for Hong Kong people and different talents to live in this area, and can elevate the burden on Hong Kong's dense urban district in Kowloon and Hong Kong Island. And we also expect that there will be an increase of residential population by 1 million and create 450 jobs in there. So also aligned with our vision for a livable and resilient Northern Metropolis, the government also listed some key action steps, including the large-scale housing land expansion project, innovation and technology hub in Shenzhen, as well as new railway projects to connect Hong Kong with cities in the Greater Bay areas. And also the new wetland conservation paths and outdoor eco-recreation tourism space projects. And then I want to emphasize that this area is a very important pilot zone for us to pilot some new policy as well as some new model of development. And we come together as a group to bring in new ideas and also to give recommendation to fit into this Northern Metropolis development strategy. So now I'm going to pass the time to my colleague, Andrew. He will walk you through of how we did this.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Andrew. I'm from DBS Bank, and I'm very honored to represent my cohort this year at the YLP program to go through you with the guiding principles for this policy recommendations that we've made. And I think it's very important to set the context and to set the scene of why we decided to do these particular principles. So what we wanted to do was to agree as a group of young adults and young professionals, what are the important things that we want to focus on? So what are the issues at hand that we, as young adults want to tackle, and subsequently for the next generation that will come after us? So, by doing that, we believe that it will, if it worked, will anchor all of the policies that we will be presenting to you and also available in the report, and ensure that they're grounded on very clear principles. And all of the work that we do can then be unified and understood holistically as recommendations that cover a wide variety of different aspects within Hong Kong and the development within the Northern Metropolis. So as mentioned before, there are 4 key areas or 4 key pillars that we discuss within this particular presentation and report. And to facilitate this, we had defined 11 principles. Without sharing or sort of revealing all the secrets in this presentation, I'm going to go through 4 to give you a flavor of what the types of key quality of life indicators we came up with are. So the first, as an example relating to housing, we wanted to ensure that there is access to affordable and reasonably sized housing. In a low carbon environment, we want to ensure that we can bring in walkability, bikeability, and mass transportation for all that are living in the Northern Metropolis. Then, with regards to innovation and technology, to ensure that all those that live within the Northern Metropolis have equal access to education. And in particular, how do you bring about STEM education and promote a job growth in these particular areas? I think it's important to also highlight that we're not talking about information technology, but innovation and technology covering a much broader scope. And last but not least, with regards to ecological conservation, right? To make sure that we actively preserve and celebrate the ecological and cultural values that that determine who we are as residents of Hong Kong. So I'm sure you'll look forward to the remaining 7 principles, but I want to give a quick summary of the 4 pillars that we'll be talking today as I introduce the next speaker. So the first is creating a model for inclusive housing. And this does not necessarily mean provide as much housing as humanly possible. It means to look at quality, affordability, suitability, and a various plethora of different characteristics. To develop a low carbon zone, right? So this is how do you bring in new technologies, new ways of doing things to enable a low carbon environment in the Northern Metropolis, potentially as a pilot for the rest of Hong Kong to replicate. Then building a robust innovation and technology ecosystem. Again, this is not about information technology. It can be about food tech, education tech, and a variety of different technologies that can be brought to Hong Kong to create employment, to diversify the skill sets that are available in Hong Kong. And last but not least, we'll be taking you through a journey through the heritage, richness, and eco-cultural tourism as a new idea and new concept for Hong Kong to develop. So something other than the standard tourism activities that we've been promoting over the last few decades. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the next speaker, Ms. Bonnie, on creating a model for inclusive housing. Thank you.
So I'm going to introduce how to create a model for inclusive housing. First of all, I think everyone knows there's many housing problems in Hong Kong. The property price is getting higher and higher. The property size, however, is getting smaller and smaller. The average waiting time for public rental housing is 6.1 years. The sandwich class who cannot affordable to buy a private property, and also they are not eligible to apply for the home ownership scheme, are trapped between. Our living quality is also not good. In fact, it's poor. The average living space in the public rental housing is 13.5 meters squares. The building is not designed to adapt for the changes of the residents' needs, including in particular to the elderly and persons with disabilities. There is also some social tensions and segregations amongst the different social groups and different housing groups. So in our team, we will focus on three key focus areas. Firstly, we propose to reestablish the housing as a basic social right. We will propose to revamp the current HOS framework, which I will going to go into detail with you all. Second proposal relates to the provide housing for young adults. The second key focus, we propose to institute a new standard for quality living. We want to introduce a new standard of inclusive home and foster a distinctive and attractive home with strong sense of belongings. Thirdly, we propose to have a new design for social inclusion as a core principle. We propose to have an inclusive community design through prioritizing public spacing, which I will go into detail with you later on as well. We also provide the community infrastructure design to support the underprivileged groups. In our first proposal, we propose to revamp the HOS framework and manage the market to meet the housing needs. We target to increase the home ownership ratio to 65% in Hong Kong and 18% for age less than 35 years old by 2032. We also target to reduce the public rental housing waiting time to reduce less than 2 years by 2032. But how? So we are going to introduce a new subsidized housing concept, development of affordable and suitable housing scheme. We call it DASH scheme. What is the difference of DASH compared with the HOS? We will provide a higher quality properties, but at a lower price. The new DASH scheme will be sold at cost, including the construction cost and administration costs. It will no longer relevant to the current market price or the income value. To cater for the middle class to the sandwich class group, we will also introduce a new higher tier, DASH Plus units. We will broaden the eligibility with higher income threshold for them. So if you cannot buy HOS properties right now, you may apply to our Dash Plus scheme. Of course, the Dash Plus scheme will be sold at a higher price. Those higher prices will be used to subsidize the current public rental housing. We will also restrict the secondary market because we want to avoid for people to buy our Dash Plus scheme or Dash scheme to just earn money. Those properties should be reserved for people who are really in need. So in our proposal, you will notice that we will attract more people from the public rental housing and also those sandwich class to have the social right to buy the properties. In our second policy proposal, we will introduce an inclusive community design through prioritizing public space. We target to provide 7 meter square open space area per resident in the Northern Metropolis by 2032. We are going to introduce a new concept, a donut-centric development model. This model is targeted to locate the transit stop in the middle and surrounded by a public space of 200 to 400 meters. This open space will allow more shared communal spaces and facilities. At the outer area, it is located for the mixed housing development, whereas the public housing and the private housing are interveningly located at the outer area. Our purpose is to allow the residents at those areas to go through the public space together. They can have more time to interact with each other throughout their daily commute working routes. It will benefit and facilitate the social interaction across the housing spectrum. By providing more open space, it will increase the happiness index of all the residents. It will reduce the illness, depressions, and anxiety. And normally in Hong Kong, the place around the transit stop will have the highest economic value, so that the most expensive private properties will be located at there. And the land farthest from the transit stop will have the least economic values, such that most of the time we will put the public rental housing or the subsidized housing at there. It creates a feeling that poor people must live outside and rich people can live in the core. We want to erase this feeling. So by introducing our new model, the economic values are evenly distributed. And we hope this model could reduce the social segregation problem. So now I'm going to pass to my colleague Howard to introduce the zero carbon zone.
Thank you, Bonnie. I'm Howard. I have the pleasure of representing an extremely dedicated group of teammates in the low carbon team. I'm going to start off by reminding you all that we're all familiar with climate change and its devastating impact on our world. I think it's fair to say that it is one of the greatest challenges facing our generation and the generations to come. Hong Kong is pledged to be carbon neutral by 2050, and we all have a role to play. The Northern Metropolis will be a dense urban environment with high energy demand, with large amounts of waste generated, primarily around buildings and transport. And with buildings in Hong Kong currently consuming 64% of energy, transport 18%, and waste recovery rate of less than 30%, there's much room for improvement, and a step change in mindset is required. With its proximity to the mainland, existing unique ecological assets and development needs, the Northern Metropolis is a unique opportunity for establishing a pilot low carbon zone, where forward-thinking and bold policies can really be implemented. After engaging with a diverse range of stakeholders, backed up by statistics and precedents, our policy proposal addresses 3 key areas. First, we propose to reduce embodied carbon in buildings by 75% by using recycled materials, by increasing equipment efficiency, and use of low carbon energy. backed up by incentivizing low energy consumption. Second, for transport, we want to reduce the number of cars with efficient public transport. We want to accelerate the adoption of electric vehicles with infrastructure. We also want to, most importantly, promote walking and cycling. With those measures, we're confident that carbon emissions in transport can be reduced by 80%. Third, the Northern Metropolis can be a pioneering zone for material circularity by addressing the bottlenecks in the recycling chain and increasing the recycling rate in Hong Kong from 30% to 70% by 2040. As you can see, our team had many great ideas, but there are two in particular I'm very excited to share with you. The rationale across all of our policies are simple: to consume less, and if we consume, then recycle. Waste recovery rate, as I mentioned, is poor in Hong Kong because there's a lack of separation of waste, there's a lack of outlets, and over-reliance on the private sector. With our material circularity concept, we think it is feasible to increase the recycling rate in Hong Kong in 5 key steps. Number 1, to mandate separation of recyclables at source, supported by public provision of collection network and consolidation facilities funded through a public-private partnership that supplies the recovered materials to number 3, the Greater Bay Area and Hong Kong to be processed and recycled into recycled products to fuel the construction of buildings in Hong Kong and to be used as biofuels to create fertilizers for farming. These measures, supported by the integration of Greater Bay and Hong Kong through the recovered materials trading platform, which is supplemented by the recycled construction material certification scheme. One person's trash is another's treasure. And this circular loop has the potential to become a self-sustaining engine for the growth of the Northern Metropolis. Another idea we want to share with you is what if walking and biking to and from work is not just getting from A to B, but an opportunity to connect with nature and to de-stress from every day. The Northern Metropolis is home to rich ecological resources, wetlands, fish ponds, the Shenzhen River, country parks. Our team is proposing an ecological corridor concept that promotes walking and biking by making a pleasant experience. And this can be done in 3 levels. On a district level, we want to include urban farming into the public donut space and connecting all of it up into an ecological corridor that gets you from your home to the transport hub. Secondly, to connect districts with districts, we can utilize existing country parks and newly constructed community gardens. And over the entire Northern Metropolis, we want to we're advocating for creation of urban rural greenways to increase accessibility to the eco-recreational assets around the entire New Territories. So our concept goes beyond pure physical benefits. Our policy idea is to connect the entire metropolis with barrier-free walkways and bicycle lanes to form a continuous ecological corridor to make appreciation of these unique natural wonders an everyday experience for its residents. So these are just a couple of our ideas. These are all really great policies from the team that can be implemented, but it needs to be done at the beginning, at the planning, at the design stages, which is why we need to act now. And I implore you to check out our report and understand more. Next, we're going to talk about building a robust innovation and technology ecosystem. And I'll pass this on to my colleague, Jason.
All right, thank you, Howard. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jason, and I'm proud to represent the INT team. It's actually the work of 6 people, or 7, including me. So I'm very proud to show the results here. So the keyword here is ecosystem. Ecosystem consists of stakeholders that belong to institutions. So the policies that we propose will either reform, bolster, or create new institutions. In this way, we can link the stakeholders together and kickstart the ecosystem, both within Hong Kong and in GBA. So one important stakeholder, of course, is the community, specifically here, youth and parents. Kids don't want to do STEM. It's not attractive, right? They want to go into business and law. They want to make money. How do we encourage more kids to go into STEM? Two, focusing on universities and industry, as well as foreign talent that comes in. We have a lot of resources currently available, but it's very disjointed. So we have all the network components, but no network. How do we link that together? Three, very large scale, is a structural and fundamental difference. In GBA, we have one country, two systems, and three custom zones. How do you facilitate things to move across? Things being people and goods. So our proposal has three key areas that kind of tackle these challenges. The first is about fostering local technology talent. This can happen in two ways. One is through hard skills education through standardized STEM education. The other is more softer promotion of STEM as something cool or something sexy. I'll focus a bit about that section later. Number two is building a sustainable INT ecosystem. Sustainability or continuity happens through coordination and streamlining. So with the newly proposed Innovation, Technology and Industry Bureau, ITIB, we propose an office to consolidate the funding, consolidate the R&D direction of the government, the recruitment of foreign talent, both focusing on Hong Kong and GBA. The second is looking at the links between university and industry. And this here we propose what we call the Northern Metropolis R&D Transfer Zone. I'll talk more about this later. The last one is how to integrate the Northern Metropolis to the GBA. So this, again, I mentioned earlier, facilitating the flow of many things: talent, technology, goods, through things like reducing taxes, allowing easier immigration schemes, joint research institutions, we can call them, between different existing industries, and joint funding schemes, etc. And we need a way to measure this through a consolidated index. So that's what the third section talks about. So that's kind of big. I want to bring it back to the local community. And the reason why for that is because ideas start from someone. And that someone comes from maybe someone in this room, someone in the virtual room, someone in the community. It's an idea from someone or a group of someones, right? And we want to say, hey, I want to become that person that creates the new idea, that creates that new product, that changes the way we live in the world. To do that, we believe the best way to do that is through STEM. But through this, we want to promote STEM in the community and amplify the community's interest in STEM. For that, we propose STEM at community, or in Chinese, it's STEM 在開區, Mandarin, it's STEM 在區區. And so these are physical resource districts that are located in all the 18 districts. And this will be a hub for students at the primary, secondary, vocational, and university level to showcase their work, as well as for industry leaders, people already in tech, to come share within the community. Now, these are physical spaces in the community, STEM at community. The idea is eventually they can create programs that go out into the community, which we call STEM across community, written as STEM X community there. And what that is bringing STEM education out into the community, educating parents and students. On the right is the structure. It's monitored by government, operated by NGOs in different districts, and the collaboration was what I just discussed. So these will be piloted first in Yulong and the northern districts, which are heavy population centers. Because they're run by different NGOs, they will have many different kinds of ways of running, but we want to start in that connection zone. Now, moving from community to university education, the university is actually a very important part in Hong Kong research and development. About 50% R&D work is done there. So there's a lot of potential in there. But however, Hong Kong is not known to be, or not known to have many innovative universities. Also, patent production is quite low. Income generated from IP is also quite low. So we need a way to fix that. The two areas that are of concern is one, restrictions on university workers, and two, the linking of university to industry. So on the first section, on restrictions, if we look at the top left there, currently I work in the university. So if I create something, the university owns it. If I can get it, then the royalties I get is a small percent. And third, I have restrictions on the time that I can spend outside of the university. We need to change that in the currently existing institutions, designated by the refresh signal over there. Second is the building of a new campus at the Northern Metropolis region. A lot of greater or Bay areas, I should say, are anchored by strong research institutions. So this one will be built and heavily subsidized in terms of piloting practices that encourage researchers to commercialize their innovations. Also, it will be subsidized to be built within the standards that were mentioned by Howard in terms of developing a low carbon zone. So once we have that, we've unleashed or unlocked that research, we need a way to link it to industry. So for that, we propose a new Technology Transfer Nexus, or TTN. And what TTN is a physical institution based in the Northern Metropolis that liaises between the university's outputs to those of the industry needs. And those industry needs come from the Greater Bay Area as well as Hong Kong. And specifically, it will provide legal and business consultation, linking up to investors who need needs, will also get subsidized, and expositions or roadshows, etc. And the result of this is we get to reap the rewards of the unleashed potential in the universities, linking those two together. So going back to the ecosystem, it's about stakeholders, initiatives, at many different levels and places, and linking them. Only after we link them can we get back to our goal of building a robust system. A robust system is productive as well as self-sustaining. But that's not the only ecosystem that actually matters, right? The other one that matters is actually the ecological ecosystem, maybe what we think of when we hear ecosystem. And this university will be placed in the Northern Metropolis, which is home to many, many cultural and ecological areas. So to speak more on that, I'm going to invite my colleague Karen to come speak about cultivating eco-cultural tourism. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Karen. I'm representing the eco-cultural tourism group. Well, at this time, we are not so easy to travel overseas during COVID. Our team has been working very hard in the last three weeks to develop a new local tourism model, which I would like to share with you, and I hope that it will bring some excitement to you. Before I go straight into the model, I will walk through with you on some challenges the eco-cultural tourism industry facing. So currently, we do not have a comprehensive eco-cultural map. We are lacking of a dedicated office to take charge of the development of the industry. And there are also conflict of interest among stakeholders. And there are a possibility of over-tourism that may bring negative effect to the ecosystem. Okay, to address this issue, we identified three focus areas to work on. And we have dedicated, we have a corresponding policy suggestion under each of the focusing area. Well, for the first one, redefining tourism, we suggest the government to set up a dedicated Northern Metropolis focused project management office under the Cultural, Sport and Tourism Bureau. And for active conservation as the second focus area, we call for the establishment of an eco-cultural mapping mechanism and the development of a mechanism to decide on the land use and to upgrade the rural urban revitalization matching program. Okay, for the third focusing area, support local business, we suggesting the government to establish a one-stop resources center to support the rural business. Well, in the interest of time, I will select two policy proposals to elaborate further. The first one is referring to redefining tourism. What is all about redefining tourism?
So we propose, we intend to transform the traditional tourism, which focus a lot on eating, sightseeing, going to the recreational park, this kind of activity, to a new model. Under the new tourism model, we will design tour that can provide a more enjoyable experience to the tourists through engaging them into the participation of cultural and creative activity into local area. We also encourage them to communicate, interact with the local people. And we also help them to understand more about the eco-social and the environmental issues. So to do that, we describe our new model as a three-eye tourism model, which I represent immersive, interactive, and innovative. So the second question is, why Northern Metropolis? So we find that there is abundant cultural and ecological resources in Northern Metropolis. So tourists, they can explore the nature and also experience the cultural heritage in a single trip in a very convenient and easy way, which we believe no other cities in the world can offer. Okay. Well, in this respect, we believe Northern Metropolis will be an ideal location to roll out the three-eye tourism model. Okay, how do we do that? So we need a dedicated office under the CSTB. Okay, they undertake the function of facilitating and supporting the industry, introducing training and accreditation system, and to promote the awareness of responsible tourism and educate the general public. And they can work more on the collaboration with the GBA cities. Okay, we come to the second proposal, which fall under the active conservation. We call for the establishment of a eco-cultural mapping mechanism, the importance of which is to help us to identify relevant and useful itinerary. It can also help to decide on what kind of land use and what percentage of land use, so that we can achieve a well-balanced land use system in terms of dividing between development and conservation. So to do this, we call for the government to engage an experienced consultant to take up the task. They can conduct interview, conduct sightseeing, record oral story, history of the local villages. Next step, the government can also set up a database system to register the cultural ecological assets that identified. And by measuring ecological and cultural value, the government can also make estimation on the carrying capacity of different tourist locations. And they can also give an idea to the government about how to protect and manage the assets going forward. Well, basically, this is the idea we propose forward. And with the proposed new three-eye tourism model, our team are actually looking forward to the materialization of the new world-class premium eco-tourism sites in the Northern Metropolis. Okay, this quickly ends our presentation on the eco-cultural tourism sector. Okay, next well, just now, four of our team has shared with you a lot of brilliant and bright idea, a proposal, a policy, and that we think that will create a more livable and resilient Northern Metropolis. And we think that if the policy to be implemented, it will bring a substantial impact to the quality of life of the Northern Metropolis. And as what has been mentioned by Eric at the opening remark, and our presentation represents only a fraction of the total picture, the total huge amount of policy suggestion. So please read the full report, which we expected to roll out in 2 weeks' time. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Karen. And also thank you, my teammate, for the great presentation. May I invite everyone and also the audience behind the camera to please give them a big hand again for the great work. So before entering the Q&A sections, may I invite Professor KK Ling for the to share with us some comments or feedbacks on the presentation. Thank you, Professor Ling.
That's really exciting to hear, so many good ideas and concepts in my opinion, in such an intensive manner. All right, so I keep on taking notes. 4 pages at least. It is, I think it is really, really intensive. When I listen to the presentation, it really, brought me back to some 30 years ago when I was, in your age. I was fortunate that, when I was just promoted to be a town planner, then the government by that time still called my department. We don't have a planning department at that time. It was called a building lands and planning department. All right, so and then they organized a management workshop for the young professionals, and I was fortunate to be selected to join. And definitely, there's more or less a similar process. We gone through to generate new ideas, to develop networks, and we learn from each other because we come from different profession, different background, and then suddenly, the mind can be very much, broadened. And then later on, I have another opportunity, to join the team building course. All right, apart from classroom learning, we were sent to the Outward Bound School and then lived in the wilderness for 10 days. So again, that is a really good experience, and I can imagine, or you really have gone through this journey. Eric was right that perhaps I should not look at all these ideas or proposals generated by innovated by the team through a from a so-called, with quotation, professional and technical perspective. What I said, it is a process of exploration to learn something which may not be familiar with you, and I always hold a view about learning. What's learning? In my opinion, learning is a process that you get to know what you don't know, and then you turn some of your don't know to be know. Definitely, you cannot turn all your don't know to know, but at least some. And I can imagine that, all right, you actually have gone through this process very seriously, you know, and now, first of all, I would say your way of thinking, your method of exploring the don't knows is very, very structured. You know, it is not ad hoc. Maybe you start with a very ad hoc, you know, pattern, but at the end of the day, you can conceptualize all your ideas in a very, and presents them in a very structured manner. And I think this is very important. This is very important. We know that we have a lot of information, a lot of knowledge everywhere. But what is important is that we know, and then we organize them and conceptualize it, and then present it, tell the good story to your audience. And through telling this good story, actually you reconstruct, you know, your knowledge or concept into something which is systematic, and at least there will be chances for implementation. If it is just a lump of good ideas, then you would not have any chance for implementation. But once you conceptualize it in a system, in a structured way, then you'll know what are the key points, and then you enhance the opportunity for implementation. And then I think this is extremely important. And no doubt this is a difficult journey. That's the first point. And the second point is, well, you have identified 4 key pillars. And I think this is very important. When we want to do something, we know that we may not be able to do everything we want to do, all right? But we need to identify what are the key things we can do. And once we tackle this, then some of the problems will also be resolved, even though we did not tackle it directly. And I think this is very, very important. And then you pick this very 4 important pillars. You know, if we agree, if you can convince yourself, convince the community, and convince the government that these 4 pillars are important, then together we will find a way to make it happen. Or the way you propose may not be the best way to make it happen, but at least you saw the vision, you saw the target, you saw what you think is good, and then you convince the others this is good. If it is good, then let us make it happen collectively, with our collective wisdom, with our collective effort. And then your 4 pillars is something, in my opinion, very convincing, very persuasive. And I think this is important to gain, you know, the support of the other people. We always know that we cannot do everything by our own. All right, we need to work with the other people. And of course, another very interesting, very visual presentation is about your donut-centric development model. All right, definitely in the real world, you can never have this donut. But this is conceptual, and this concept is important, right? To a certain extent, this is a very idealistic living environment that we would like to, you know, achieve. Of course, this is difficult, definitely very difficult. And I always said, okay, yes, that's difficult. If it is not difficult, why do you need, we are here? Why do we need? Because it is difficult. Also, you need, we are here. Also, this a donut-centric development model is a very, very conceptual model. And then I particularly looked 2 points. You know, the rich live in middle and the poor live at the fringe. We should avoid this. And I think this is very good. This is what equity, what fairness, you know, is doing. We should not let the, you know, the rich people enjoy all the good things. So in my work, you know, as a town planner, sometimes when we allocate site for public housing, we may receive some comment, oh, this is a good site. If you put it to a market, then the government can earn a lot from land sales. then always my response is why we cannot put, public housing in a good site. In my opinion, in my planning scheme I produce, I always put the best location for public use. The most convenient location, the most scenic place should be for the enjoyment of the majority. All right. So when people talking about, okay, we control the building height, from the harbor to the mountain, you affect the design liberty of the architects, you affect, land avenue from the developers. No, I say, well, it is a fair distribution of view to the harbor. Or we should not allow a small group of people like buildings next door to dominate everything. Right? So we will achieve a more fair distribution of this public asset. And I think this is important. And then we need to know what are the public assets we consider worth enough to be served. So I like Karen's talking about, let's map 100% the eco-cultural asset in the Northern Metropolis. Well, you remember I in my presentation I said we must create a very unique metropolitan landscape for the Northern Metropolis. Every metropolis will have this very unique, landscape, and the very unique metropolitan landscape for the Northern Metropolis is to be created by the integration of rural and urban, the coexistence of development and conservation. And to do this, before the bulldozer of urbanization move forward, we need to identify what we must protect. And therefore, Karen's idea, Karen's team's proposal of mapping 100% the eco-cultural assets is really important. That's the benchmark. Without this benchmark, don't proceed with the urbanization. So this is very important. And of course, it's always controversial because some of the assets you would like to preserve, may not be considered worthwhile preserved even by the owner. All right, so we have, again, this is a very difficult task. And then one point I would also like to share with you is about all the good things you have proposed. Actually, when we, in my experience, all right, so I always when I was about to retire, many bureaus, departments invite me to share with my achievement, my frustration in my civil service. I always share with frustrations, all right? One frustration is, all right, when I circulate a planning proposal, then what I received, from the other departments that according to the existing existing departmental guidelines and priority, or I have the following comments. Okay, this is really frustrating because I'm talking something that may happen 15 years down the road. And then you examine this, you measure this, all right, with the existing regulations and priority and policy. So that caused a lot of frustration because if we want to achieve this, then definitely some of the existing things need to be changed. All right, so this is the first frustration. And the second frustration, okay, your proposal is really good. Really good. You do it. And after you have done it, then I'll follow. All right, so okay, this good, vision in the future cannot be achieved by my own. We have to achieve it collectively. So let's do it together instead of you push me forward, and then that's not the way of doing. And then that point reminds me, you have a lot of ideas, and you do not need to wait for the implementation or the completion of the whole of the metropolis, for the implementation or realization of your ideas. Many of your ideas can be implemented right now. And for the whole Hong Kong, For example, what you're talking about, we have many communities already. And we have STEM education. Why we can't implement this policy right now? So don't let planning to be an excuse to defer good things. All right, so many good things can be implemented right now. All right, so this is perhaps it's time for me to conclude. I always remember I would say my teacher, my professor in my town planning course. I learned town planning in the Hong Kong University. He said, you know, the only certainty about the future is uncertainty. What that? My professor stopped here. Not until at the end of our master program, he completed this. And the best way to deal with uncertainty, create certainty through planning and action. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Professor KK Ling, for such inspiring comments, and we feel humbled that your remarks have inspired us and in some ways validated the hard work that this team has done, and particularly the way that they have thought about asking the questions, even if all of the exact implementation may not be certain at this stage. But thank you very much, Professor. So we have about 15-20 minutes, and I'd like to now open the floor for some questions. We will invite members of the audience here, but we also have a lot of questions coming in, which are being curated here online. So if I can maybe open the floor, and the answers will be delivered by our cohort. Are there any questions that we can start off with amongst the group here? I know there's a number of you who are connected to different aspects of this report. We'd love to have any questions, no matter how easy or difficult. Any questions amongst the group? Yes, please. If you would like to just speak it out, and then I will repeat it for our online group. Oh, great question. No, that's an excellent question. So the question was, will we be presenting this to government, and to which bureau? We will do our best to try, yes. The report will be distributed to the incoming chief executive and all of the relevant bureaus and departments. In years past, we have had the opportunity, the participants, to present the core ideas to PICO, the Policy Innovation and Coordination Office. And I think 2 or 3 years ago, also there was a presentation at LegCo. So we will do our best, but if any of you have connections and introductions to make that happen, then we would be grateful. We will certainly do our best to take this presentation further. Yes, CY Lam.
I'm very impressed by the commitment to the 3 I2s. I think it's a very good idea, but don't wait for planning. If you ask the government to do it, I think it won't happen in 10 years. So my question is, are you so committed that you would be prepared to set up an NGO to do this yourself, at least to some extent? So please, the group, are you willing to do it yourself, at least small scale at first? Or would you be prepared to be volunteers to doing this under the umbrella of another?
Great. So thank you. The question was for our online audience, and from CY Lam, who you are also our inspiration, who shared with us in Module 1 about the important work that you've been doing in the Countryside Foundation and Lai Chi Wo. Maybe I can invite one member of the eco-cultural tourism team to come and share with us, are we committed to doing something, setting up an NGO, or working ourselves before government actually starts to take these ideas on board. So Mei Ling, can I invite you from the eco-cultural team?
Thanks, Eric. And thank you, CY, Mr. Lam. This is Mei Ling from Walk in Hong Kong. We are a cultural enterprise already doing in-depth tour and immersive, authentic experiences for tourists all around the world, including the local resident, local people. Definitely, we will take the lead to carry out all the policy recommendations that we are just proposed. And we don't want it just to put it on paper, but in real life experiences, so that all people can enjoy what we did and what we planned. And I'm sure this is everyone in the world, and especially Hong Kong people, that they see, because this is a treasure of all the Hong Kong citizens. And we need to preserve it and to promote it. So this is my promise and our team's promise. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mei Ling. I would encourage the group to also talk further with CY Lam and others. And again, I would encourage those who are dialing in or watching us virtually to get in touch if you have ideas, because I know that the cohort is very inspired to do things. And we just need to have many more collaboration to implement these ideas. Any other questions from the group? Yes, please. We'll take one more from the audience, and then I have a long queue online, but please.
Thank you. Miranda from the Hong Kong Federation of Youth Groups Leadership Institute. I would like to add on what Siwa has been saying, because my side has been actually revitalizing the former planning practices. So I think it's really a good kickstart, not just to wait for planning, but actually that we are all here to kickstart doing something. And of course, when we are talking about startup, we know lead startup. So writing on the courses, how to engage people and make this happen. So I have to know about 3I. And my question is indeed is, with all these amazing four pillars, I would also like to know from the teams, from your perspective, the role of young people, because future is ours and also the young people. How do you think they are playing roles? Are they going to practice your ideas, or they are doing more brainstorming together?
Very good. Thank you, Miranda, from Federation of Youth Groups Leadership Center. I think the question was, and let me just preface, because you did say, you know, it's up to all of us and all of you. But one of the things that we also want to leave the group as a key takeaway is to bring these ideas and the sense of ownership and action into their own organizations. Not so much only as individuals, but they all work and have leadership positions in large organizations, large companies, and NGOs. So there is much that they can do within those organizations. But your question, and I'll open it up to the group, the role of young people. What do you see as the role of young people in taking action in some of these ideas? Again, not waiting for government. So I would open that to any of the groups, not just the tourism group, but even the INT ecosystem group, or anyone else. The role of young people, I know many of you talked about it. I see a movement in the front. So Andrew, please. He's captured the leadership moment, so come up and share with us.
Thank you for the question, first of all. And I think it's something that we have been reflecting actually as a group collectively. And I think the most important thing that we've achieved is to be able to reach out and understand the needs and be empathetic to people that come from different walks of life. And so when you ask, you know, what are we going to do? How are we going to take away as young adults or youth, right? What are we going to do from this point forward? I think first is to understand, and I think that's a big part of the problem in Hong Kong today, right? A lack of empathy and a lack of understanding. And I think we've managed to take the first step. And then the next part, right, is how do you put that into action? And for me, it's really about taking this understanding and bringing it back to all the different organizations and communities that we represent, and be able to share the knowledge and be able to connect the different individuals together. I firmly believe that the future does belong to us as young adults, and how we then build this for our children is even more important. So it's of course going to be a mixture of planning, action, right? And very much, I think the last piece of the puzzle is follow up, right? How do you ensure that what you've done is really making an impact, and how do you adjust and experiment to make the future better. So for us, it's a mixture of these three things, and being able to connect to different people in the community is the first step. I'm sorry I don't have a more direct answer to your question, but I hope that gives you a flavor of the spirit that I think we've built as a team and as a cohort of this program.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. Okay, thank you, Andrew. So let me just also now acknowledge some of our online questions, and I'm going to try to pick at least one question from each of the teams. So the first one on housing, I'm going to kind of combine two questions. Jordan asks, I notice an emphasis on providing affordable housing for young adults. Why the focus only on young adults? But then there is another question from Elizabeth. Hong Kong's population is aging. How can the Northern Metropolis Development Zone be shaped to care for their needs? So I know the housing team did look at life stage planning for housing. So can I ask one representative from the housing team to just address one or both of those, young adults and also the aging need? And I see our team leader from housing, Cherry, moving to the front. Thank you so much, Cherry.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Cherry. Let me talk about the elderly part first, and then I'll pass to my younger teammate Andrew to talk about the young adult part. So for the aging problem in Hong Kong, we actually did look into that aspect. And if you remember about our public donut, one of the detail in the public donut that we haven't have time to mention is that we want to promote an end-to-end accessibility design for elderlies and for people with disabilities in the housing in our housing model, because we noticed that there are many BFA requirements for individual premises and infrastructures, but then how to connect these infrastructures. Like, for example, if the adult is going to walk from one place to another place, if that is over like 300 or 400 meters, do we have a resting area for them so that their commute trip didn't break apart, so that these aging populations can actually enjoy the neighborhood that they live in and expand the social circle. So that is an idea about end-to-end accessibility that we want to build into our inclusive housing model. Another part is, of course, when we have the infrastructure, we have to think about the operation. And that's why we also left out area for district community support in the in the public space donut circle, so that we can have ongoing NGO support to look after the needs of different demographic in the community. So I'll pass the time to Andrew to talk about why we also focus on the adult house ownership plan.
Thank you, Cherry. So maybe I'll start by prefacing that it is not out of self-interest that we're looking after the youth groups. I just wanted to start with that. And then the second,
just a little bit.
Just maybe a little bit. And then the second part, I think we were actually very inspired by the work that was being done by the Youth Foundation, and in particular the hostel that we visited. And we recognized two things. The first thing was that the needs of the youth are very different to those that currently are deciding the policies. And we actually feel that as a collective demographic, youth are actually underserved, right? And I don't think, in particular, we're talking about, the social issues that have happened in the last 3 years. But I think over the last 2 decades ago, this erosion has been taking place steadily. And one figure that you can, look at is, for example, the home ownership, right, for people under 35. That has decreased from something, I think, around 23% to about 7% as of today. And that's more deep, the chance to sell, the report is that you can actually read a lot of this in the report that we're going to produce. And so when the reason why I wanted to tackle this particular problem is that we want to make sure that youth are invested in Hong Kong. And I think that's ultimately the principle that we want to deliver, right? In order for us to feel a sense of unity, we must first feel invested. And so providing the avenues and the options for people to be able to do this is incredibly important. And I think over the last 20 years or so, youth as a group has been marginalized. How do we fix this problem? and how do we encourage more participation, investment, and a sense of dignity for use in Hong Kong. So that's the reason for that particular focus. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Andrew. And as Andrew said, there's a lot more depth of analysis in the report, which covers on these issues as well, that the team covered. Let me quickly do 2 more questions to relate to 2 of the other teams. Let me go to INT, the Innovation and Technology. So a question from Francis in Hong Kong. I fully agree with the need to place more emphasis on commercializing university research. You mentioned connecting with the GBA. What can be done to better leverage the GBA to commercialize R&D from Hong Kong? So I think that touches on at least 1, if not 2, of the focus areas that the team looked at. I would invite Jason or anyone from the team who would like to field that one. Okay, Jason, please.
So the question was from Francis, yeah? So thank you, Francis, for that question. So currently, I propose the establishment of the Technology Transfer Nexus, the TTN. And so what that does is it connects actually through the existing universities' technology transfer offices, TTO, and those help the universities create the patents. So now on the GBA side, what the TTN wants to do is actually liaise with not only universities, but also industries in the GBA. So there's an actual outreach arm that goes into the GBA and says, what are the needs right now? Who has the money to invest in these things? And they also do research out into the Hong Kong market as well. So the TTN is going to have one that liaises with the university side, and it's going to have one that goes into GBA and explores where the market opportunities are. And so, yeah, and that's located in the Northern Metropolis because of the proximity, not only to Shenzhen, which we focus on a lot, but other GBA cities. There's 9 other ones, right? So yes.
Great. Thank you, Jason. And I know the team also had quite a lot of ideas around that whole key focus area of connecting and enabling the free flow of people, money, goods and services, ideas. So I think coordinated by that office. Okay. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
I would like to take at least one question from the the low carbon team. And there's quite a lot here, a lot of questions, so which one to pick? But my team is dutifully posting them all up here. So let's take one from Olivia. Why do you think the target of reducing 75% carbon is achievable by significantly reducing the waste? Waste may only share a little on overall emissions. I think that might have been a confusion with the 75% buildings, but maybe I'll let you guys clarify. Why specifically on biofuels, but not other energy? So can maybe I just ask one of the team from low carbon to talk about the targets of reducing carbon in both buildings and waste. And I know you have a lot of those figures at the front of your mind. So here comes Howard to field that question. Howard, over to you.
Thank you. It was Olivia, right, for the question?
Well, not our Olivia, I think a different Olivia.
Ah, different Olivia. Yeah, so can I read that again? Yeah, I think to clarify that, the 75% reduction in embodied carbon in buildings is through the use of recycled materials so that we do not need to manufacture additional material from other sources, from virgin materials. But that's only one small part of our overall concept for decarbonizing buildings. We want to look at the entire building life cycle, from the not just the materials within the building, but how the building is constructed and how the materials transported to the site. So if we can use sustainable fuels, we can reduce the carbon from the construction process as well. And biofuels is just one of such examples to power construction equipment and transport. Also, there are examples like using containerized battery energy storage systems to operate cranes instead of diesel generators. There's another example during the operation phase of the building. to use not just biofuels for tri generation, which is more efficient, but to also use solar thermal heating for water heating. Because in Hong Kong, we still use fossil fuels for much of our water heating and cooking. These are just some of the examples, and a lot more details will be in our reports.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add on about waste or the circularity of the Northern Metropolis? I mean, I know you kind of presented, but that's a big idea too.
Yes, so on the material circularity concept, we want to promote this closed loop, so the waste ecosystem or recyclables ecosystem can become a self-sustaining engine for the growth of the Northern Metropolis. So if we can take the waste from household and commercial, remanufacture them into products for constructions, for other purposes, I mean, it's just an illustration, then we can really close the loop and invite cooperation for the Greater Bay Area.
Yeah, thank you, Howard. I think this is a big idea that, as I think Howard said in the presentation, the team talked a lot about, requires a serious mindset change and a completely new way of looking at a zone, in this case in the Northern Metropolis, to pilot some really big new ideas. We all know that we have not been good enough in Hong Kong, I mean, collectively, in terms of segregating, collecting, and then putting to good use the waste, which actually is a valuable material if it is upcycled or used. And GIFT has been doing some work in recycling plastic, for instance, globally. And I think Hong Kong's proximity and the Northern Metropolis to GBA offers a fantastic opportunity to develop greater circularity of plastic, but many other materials as well. And so if you're interested in that topic, you will really be interested in that chapter of the report. I think I'll just have time for one more question. Any other questions from our live audience based on what you've heard? Otherwise, I would pick from this long list on the computer screen. Any other final remarks from our friends in the flesh? If not, maybe I'll just pick one more and then we can wrap up. So to what extent, this is kind of a agglomeration, to what extent can the blueprint for the Northern Metropolis be scaled up to the wider Hong Kong? And how are we looking at, how is the young leader cohort looking at these proposals, not just in the Northern Metropolis, but really applying them to Hong Kong at large, and even in the future in the GBA? Would anyone like to just make a remark around the ideas that you guys developed, be it for housing, for INT, and to say how the Northern Metropolis as a pilot zone can be a test bed for new ideas? Anyone like to comment on that? I think that's really the overall aim of this exercise. Has it all been said? What about housing team? Any scaling up of housing ideas in the Northern Metropolis, or walkability? The walkability is a big one. Okay, and the eco corridors.
Yes, I think actually all of our team actually mentioned in our presentation that a lot of our program are designed to be pilot program to be trialed on the Northern Metropolis. The Northern Metropolis had a lot of potential. I think from our presentation, and maybe many of you have heard from Professor KK Ling, Metropolis is a relatively, they have a lot of new area to put in new things. That's why we can have a lot of base for trial and then pilot. That's why we a lot of our scheme, we make a lot of basic assumptions so that we can trial on new ideas, maybe conceptual ones. It would be difficult, but we think that we can try on the relatively more a land that could allow more freedom for us to develop new ideas, for trial new ideas on a smaller scale before we can push to the larger areas of Hong Kong. And if you actually have the time to later look into our report, we actually set some targets for each of our policy proposals. And some of the targets are focusing on the Northern Metropolis, but many of the target actually had a phasal implementation. Like our first target is to have an open space area of 7 meters square in the Northern Metropolis. But then our phase 2 and phase 3 is actually trying to use this idea to push the to push target of the QOVO plus Hong Kong target of the open space area per person to a larger area with the help of the Northern Metropolis. And if like Professor KK Ling said, our public space donut idea is very conceptual. They have a lot of difficulty, is very ideal, but we would actually like to see if we put it into implementation, what actual difficulty could we encounter, and we could definitely learn from those difficulties and try to see how we can going to push this to other new areas in the in Hong Kong. And actually, we are trying to revitalize a lot of older and maybe developed aged community in Hong Kong, and we can also use these ideas as well. But we haven't gone into that kind of policy details or that item, and we definitely welcome all of your idea. And like Professor KK Ling said, to tackle uncertainty in the future is to how to is to plan and to plan into certainty. So I think that not only as the young cohort of the YLP program, but every of you here in this room and in the internet, we can try to contribute in our own ways. Yeah, that's what be my conclusion.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you, Cherry. Very well said. All right, so let me now hand over to conclude our MC. I think she's just going to introduce the teams and say a formal closing. Thank you.
May I have 1 more minute?
Of course, I can't say no, Professor. So please, if you give us more inspiration.
No. Actually, I just would like to add 2 points. First of all, planning is very important. Planning is very important. And then at the present moment, the government is carrying out several very important planning and engineering feasibility study in the Northern Metropolis area. So I would encourage the team, to put forward your ideas to the study team. All right, and then so that you have synergy, then incorporate your ideas in the plan. That's the first point. And the second point is government and corporations are also very important. Actually, you are the rising stars in the government and in your own corporation. Not only you, it is actually the whole young cohort are the rising stars in our community. So you need to influence, your corporation, your department in the government, to do good things and to do right things right now. Not wait for the Northern Metropolis, and that's what I would like to add. Thank you very much.
So this is the end of our forum, and thank you everyone for coming, both online and offline. So basically this is the end of our presentation and the forum. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone.